Thank you for joining me today. My name is Florencia Palmaz with Palmaz Vineyards, and I'm here to walk you through some tips and tricks for pulling off a perfect paella party. When I start preparing a paella, I always have out some bread and some charcuterie just to let everybody hang around, have a glass of wine while I'm preparing the paella. And I'll walk you soon into what are the different things that I like to do to make sure that you can have a calm and easy party and enjoy your friends and family. So the secret to a perfect paella is pre-infused broth. This is really the source of all the flavors. In this pot I have 8 cups of broth, and I'm going to be adding to it 1 quartered onion, and then about half of the container of saffron to get that beautiful color and make sure that all the rice in the paella is evenly yellow, and a splash of wine. Now, if you don't want to be using high-end Chardonnays, I completely understand. It just happens to be what I have in the house. What I recommend, though, is to make sure not to get anything that is overly oaky or overly acidic. Otherwise, it'll definitely dominate the whole taste of the dish. And one of the best things is you want to make sure to have a Chardonnay that you enjoy drinking, because the cook's priority is to not only cook with the bottle of Chardonnay, but also enjoy a bit as you go along. So we're going to let this simmer for about 20 minutes. And while this is going, we'll start all of the parts of the paella pan. Generous pour of olive oil. This is a party after all. No need to be stingy. We're going to start with the chorizo and the pancetta. Pieces of pancetta or prosciutto, whatever you like, just helps to add a little bit more fat to the base of the pan and infuse a lot of this delicious smoky flavor into the whole paella. And after you start seeing the oil have a nice red hue and really smell the spices of the chorizo, you're good to move on and add the calamari. This is about 1 pound of calamari, both bodies and tails. I like to allow it to be a combination. Gives it a nice visual effect. And don't bother slicing your calamari too thin. Let that fry up nicely. So we want to fry this up, nice high heat. We want the calamari to come in early in the paella so that it's got plenty of time to become really tender throughout the cooking process. And each time we add an ingredient, you'll see a little bit of juices from that ingredient come into the pan. Give it a moment to let those juices reduce so that you don't end up boiling all the ingredients progressively. So you can see now we've got some nice bubbles, and we're going to simmer, and we're just going to let that keep on going until it becomes dry. In the meantime, I'm going to futz with this a bit, hang out, chat for a while, and about 3 minutes later, it'll be ready to come back. So much of cooking a perfect paella has as much to do with the sound as it does with the visual. So now you can hear the crackle and really see that all the juices have reduced down, and we're back to this beautiful elixir of calamari and chorizo and pancetta, and we're ready now to add the chicken. So now we add boneless, skinless chicken thighs and spread these evenly and just let them saute and cook through. And again, don't be in a rush to get to the next ingredients. Just let this one thoroughly cook through and reduce down to really concentrate those flavors. We use smoked paprika, known as pimenton. It is not spicy, it's a sweet variety that really adds just an incredible smoky depth to the flavor. Always good to add just half a lemon at this point. Helps release the chicken and the calamari from the base of the pan. Just let that keep on cooking down. And this is the foundation of an incredible dish. Here we are, on to the next step, and we can hear the paella crackling again. So it's a perfect time to add the next piece. This is 3 cups of bomba rice. And we want to listen for this step more than anything else. You may want to lower the heat just a smidge and start listening for a really nice snap, crackle, pop, just like Rice Krispies. But don't let it get too far or we'll start sticking to the bottom of the pan. We'll add 1 onion diced. You can just hear that, just a perfect crackle. 4 cloves of garlic minced. You can never have too much garlic in my paellas. Just saute that briefly. If you start feeling like it's sticking, don't be too worried. One of the most delicious parts of a paella is the crispy bits of rice at the bottom. So if you ever have a little bit of burn on the bottom of the pan, you just unapologetically say, I did that on purpose. It's the best part. Now, spread this out a bit. Add a generous amount of Chardonnay. Helps release it all. We'll let that burn off for a bit. We'll just let this all reduce down. While this is getting ready, take a look at our broth. You can see here all the saffron is really infusing nicely. It is best to add the broth still hot. It makes sure that you don't have a delay in the cooking. You don't want to reduce the heat in the paella. So adding the broth straight from a boiling pot really helps keep a nice texture to the rice. I'll go ahead and add the rest of the saffron into the rice base. And also, this is a time where if you want to add any vegetables, it's a great time to add them. Sometimes in the summer I'll add sauteed green beans, edamame, green peas, fava beans, whatever I have in the refrigerator to give a little bit of color and texture. It's got a really pretty crackle. Now's the perfect time to add the broth. At this point, this is your go, no-go zone. So if your party's going well and everyone wants to continue having a good time for a little bit longer, you can turn this off, leave it covered, and finish the paella at a later time. But if everybody's hungry and they're ready to eat soon, just go ahead and proceed with the broth. The broth, from adding broth to finish, will be about 15 to 20 minutes. So you want to check in with everybody, make sure that they're ready to go, that they're hungry, if there's anything else. Otherwise, you could let it rest easily off heat. But we're going to go ahead. We're all hungry here today, so we're going to move forward and add the broth. It's important that this really be very moist. The main advantage to using authentic Spanish bomba rice is that it's a firm rice that can take a lot of liquid and not fall apart. You can see here, this is almost my whole pot. I want to make it completely submerged. I'll leave the rest just to top off with later. And now we'll smooth out the base and we'll start adding all the seafood on top. And if you don't want to lose too much broth while adding ingredients, lower the heat a bit just to a smooth, gentle simmer. Now, for adding the seafood, you really want to take your time. Relax, have a glass, chat for a few minutes. It's okay to spill 2-5 minutes at this time because we don't want to overcook the seafood by putting it all too quickly into the pan. What I usually start doing is slowly, while chatting, I'll start adding some of the mussels. Sometimes I just, fool around, make little decorations. I do try to place the mussels seam up into the rice and don't push them down too hard or they have a hard time opening up. One thing you do want to keep in mind though is as you're adding ingredients, make sure to do an even distribution throughout the whole pan because as your guests are serving themselves, they want to be able to scoop from each section of the pan and get an equal amount of every flavor. Usually I'll have a little bit of juice on the bottom of these bowls. I always add that in. Move on to clams. Clams are quite big and deep, as you can see. It's best not to set them straight down into the paella because they'll pool. So better to put them in sideways so that the juices will open and infuse the rest of the paella. Pour the juice and move on to the scallops. So this is a good point to kind of take a break, see how things are going, check in if there needs any more broth. I can see I've actually filled this pan quite high, so I may just give it one little more splash. Make sure that the rice in the center stays moist because at this point, the last 2 ingredients honestly will cook in less than 5 minutes. There's no need to rush. You could even pause here, have a glass, chat for a bit, and then we'll move on to the really quick really quick cooking seafoods. Smells of this is beginning to attract everyone around me. They're getting hungry. We better get on making this paella. So we're gonna add the scallops now. I've cut these in half just to help distribute them a little bit more evenly. And now, the final touch, shrimp. These cook the fastest, and to keep them from becoming rubbery, you really want to add this at the very, very end. So as you can see now, I'm well above the fill line of my paella. I could keep on going, but just to be safe, as you can see here, all of the fish is just going to steam on top, and when we cover this, the steam, the flavored steam from the whole dish will just beautifully and gently, delicately steam the shrimp. So as you can see again, very flexible, lots of room for your own personal touches. Again, a little shrimp juice, and we're ready to start steaming. So now we're ready to cover the baby. We're going to cover this gently and let this steam hot for about, I would say we probably have 10 to 15 minutes left. Help the rice firm up and bring it down to the lowest heat setting possible. When I'm working with a really big pan and one sheet of foil isn't large enough, I will also put towels on top of it to help hold in the steam. Now's a perfect time. Take another break, have a glass of wine, maybe prepare your salad or whatever else you have, and start gathering people around the table because this will be ready shortly. So I just finished prepping my salad. So as a nervous Nellie, I always like to check in, and there's no need to be afraid of checking in every once in a while. See how the progress is going. You can see the shrimp are kind of half steamed. Things are looking really nice. Within about the last 5 minutes of preparing the paella, you want to go ahead and add your roasted peppers. These traditionally were actually used as bumpers so that if you have your guests self-serving at the table, you can create little like pizza slices for them. Or you can also just scatter them around. If you're using frozen peas, now's the time also to add peas. It's nice to add them at the very end, or edamame or fava beans so that they don't turn dark. Then also a nice thing to add is just sort of helps brighten up the flavors. It's a little bit of scallions and parsley. And just for fun, it's always nice to have a really bright lemony flavor. I'll pre-squeeze just a few lemons on there as well. Looking really good, smelling amazing. We're gonna cover her back up for maybe another 5 minutes. It is almost ready. I can hear it. It sounds like it's not simmering quite so much. And now when we see it, oh yes, that's a perfectly cooked paella. And here we have it, another perfect paella Palmaz on this glorious day.